Hello and welcome to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read books and other words too. I'm Lily.
And I'm Sarah, and even though he continues to make me read horror, I am very pleased to welcome Chris Panatier back onto the podcast to talk about his latest novel, Shitshow.
Hi guys, I love my annual/semi-annual trips onto your show, so it's great to see you again.
We love them too.
Yeah, we're so glad that you write so many books because we get so many chances to talk to you.
I'm glad you guys are reading them. Keep reading them, right? Yeah. I'm glad you keep reading them.
Well, before you distract us with the conversation about this very excellent book, we do have our quick intro. So, what's something great that happened recently?
Okay, so I am contracted to write a 2027 book for Angry Robot. I have a 2026 one that's already all done and almost through edits, and we'll be doing the cover release soon. And my editor that I've had for all 4 of my books left Angry Robot and went to an imprint of Simon Schuster. Her name is Gemma Creffield. I love her. We had a great relationship, so I was naturally very scared when she left, because sometimes people have projects in the pipeline. You get a new editor and they're not super enthusiastic. But my new editor, her name is Ella Chappell, and we have done a Zoom call and we've talked, and she's great and she's very into horror. And the good news is that I gave her 3 ideas for what the 27 book will be, which I have to now write by next September. And then one night I came up with another idea and I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. And I just dashed off a synopsis and I sent it, and she responded. She was like, yes, that's what we're doing. So that was really excited to kind of hit that enthusiasm there and be like, okay, yeah, we're on all cylinders here. So the other ones were either written or partially written. And this one I have to write brand new, which is a bit daunting because it's actually a fairly audacious concept, but I haven't actually written anything new in terms of books in probably 8 or 9 months, because I've been editing or revising all this other stuff. So I'm really excited to start it. So that was a bit of good news to just get the green light on that so I can jump into it.
Is that going to be another horror novel as well?
Sadly, yes, Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm mentally preparing myself. It's fine. Okay. It's fine.
So is the 26 one. So
I did know that the 26 one was horror.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. They come out right before Spooky Month, so you got your slot, and Sarah is only forced to deal with horror during October.
That's right. I mean, having books coming out in September if you write horror is great.
Yeah.
It is good timing.
Yeah, for sure. What about you guys? What good happened to you?
My good thing is that I went to a Marina concert last night, which was a ton of fun. I'm a big fan of Marina. I've been to lots of her concerts, but I would say this was one of the best that she's done. And she played a lot of old songs in addition to her songs from the new album. So it was just a really good time.
Very cool. That's awesome. I don't even think have I heard any Marina? I don't know if I have.
I don't know if she is a genre that you listen to frequently.
It's very pop.
Yes, it's very pop.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I do sometimes listen to Taylor Swift. I do sometimes listen to Poppy, who used to be pop, but now she's metal. What else? That's about it.
Well, check out Marina, because I do think that her music is very good.
Okay.
And if you don't like it, you can blame me entirely.
Yeah, that's fine.
My good thing is maybe silly, but I'm very triumphant. I got some fancy sunscreen that's in a hard-sided bottle with a pump top. And as you know, it's impossible to get the last third of any product out. And usually I just cut the bottle open, but I couldn't because it's a hard-sided bottle. So I figured out that if I take a chopstick, I can scoop it out from the top. And that's how I'm getting the last of that stupid sunscreen out. I've solved the riddle.
Small victories.
Yeah.
Okay. I was actually someone must have invented a bottle spatula, right? With a chopstick size handle, but with a tiny little, almost like a icing thing.
But it has to be so little because the top of the bottle is very small.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're gonna go on Temu and find you one.
Yeah. No sunscreen left behind.
That's right. Hey, it's expensive.
Yeah.
I get it.
And then you throw half of it away and it feels so bad. So
Yeah.
I can't be stopped.
That's great. Well, you don't look sunburnt at all.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
It helps that it is October in Seattle, so there is not much sun to burn.
Yeah, right.
What is everyone drinking today? I have sleepy time tea, even though it is in the middle of the day. I promise I won't fall asleep.
I considered buying Fireball for this, but that was too much even for me. I couldn't do it. Sorry, Chris.
Do not apologize for that. Fireball is nuclear waste.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But it did cross my mind. So instead I'm drinking Galley Grey Regeneration Tea, which is some kind of like Earl Grey. And it is thematically appropriate only because you make a Doctor Who joke in this book.
That's right. I do. I am drinking the equivalent of sleepy time tea, which is my parents' half calf, half decaf coffee, which might as well be sleepy time tea. It is not. It's not doing the trick. It's like 2:00 here in the afternoon, and I'm still groggy as hell. Like it is not working, but it's in here, and I'm going to keep drinking it.
Yeah. All of the flavor of coffee and none of the oomph.
Oh, I wouldn't even go there, Lily.
No?
Oh, no.
It's rough. I don't know what they're buying. It's rough. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is actually a book podcast. Has anyone read anything good lately? Shitshow notwithstanding, because we're about to talk about that at length.
Well, I am almost finished with Galloway's Gospel by Sam Rebeline, who's a friend of mine and a tremendously talented writer. His debut was called Edenville. That came out 2 years ago. And this is not a sequel, but it's in the same universe. He sort of has this county in upstate New York where he actually lives, but he's got this made up county called Renfield County. And it's basically this cursed county. And Edenville was a story based at Edenville College and one of the young creative writing professors. And then this one, Galloway's Gospel, is about this high school girl who starts to sort of, you could say she's manifesting these just ideas that she thinks are just funny stories, but it turns out that she's kind of been incepted with something from the county, and she's predicting the future about the beasts of the woods that if you offer part of yourself to them, they will then poop out like magical poop and grow whatever you want. And that's just to get started. It's a very strange book, but it's highly entertaining, and I would call it like cozy horror with a little touch of gore and some cosmic, but a lot of fun. Great book. So that's what I'm reading.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I have just been reading Tolkien's letters. That's been my answer for the last 8 or 9 podcasts. So it's not a very exciting answer, but I am still slowly doing that.
These are his letters that he his correspondence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a revised edition came out, I want to say last year. The original edition of his letters was from the 80s or something. And this is revised and expanded. So some of the letters that were previously published, you get larger extracts. And then there are some letters that are new that were unpublished previously. So it's been interesting.
Oh, cool. Okay. Neat. Yeah. That's really cool.
Have you read the previous version?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. But it's been a couple of years, so.
Well, that's better than my answer, which is no. We're on a podcast sprint right now. I think I read 3 books this week for the podcast. So I don't even feel bad.
It's been a lot.
But one of those was Shitshow. Is this technically a novella? It felt like it went by very quickly.
It's technically a novel because it's just over sort of the 40,000 word cutoff. Okay. So it's like 43,000. So it's a nice little bite-sized nugget. You know, it's a very short novel. We actually, I think the edits put it over. It was probably just sitting right at 40,000. So it had been intended as a novella, but now it's just a short little novel.
Well, it's great. I mean, I sat down and read it in one sitting, which was really a delightful afternoon because I like a story that you can get the full breadth of at once. It's definitely a different reading experience from getting it in chunks.
Yeah, I like having a shorter one out there. My stuff tends to be not overly long, but solid, 80, 90,000 words, about 400 pages. So doing something that comes in, whatever this is, 175 or 180 is nice.
I think the copy that we have, the advanced copy, is 200 pages.
Yeah.
Almost exactly, 201.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
So we would probably officially label this book as goopy horror. I don't know if you have a different designation. I think horror probably is the proper genre, but you could correct me if you disagree.
Yeah, I like that. That's probably a nice subgenre to put this one in. It's kind of goopy horror. Yeah. I do try to emphasize to people, I'm like, okay, it's called Shitshow. There is a porta potty on the front, but there's not a lot of poo. Like there's a modicum of poo you have to like, to make it make sense and make it realistic. But it's not very poo forward. Okay.
No, there's not actually a lot of human waste. The goopiness comes in other ways.
Yeah, it's sort of an ectoplasm sort of situation.
Yeah. So as you mentioned the porta potty, in the afterwards of this book, you say that the idea for this book came from the phrase portal potty. Can you tell us a little bit about how it evolved from there, and then how you decided to incorporate carnival themes on top of that?
Yeah, good question. I was riding my bike, I saw a porta potty, and I literally, because I'm always just like playing with words and phrases in my head, so naturally I was just like, portal potty? And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. What's the story, right? And how do I come up with a story that doesn't just have a gimmick, but actually, how do I make it holistic? How do I make the idea of toilets or portal potties or whatever, and I guess human sewage, how do I make that into a fun, unified story? And I played with some ideas of, okay, well, where do you see porta potties? Well, you've got concerts, the Marina concert. I'm sure they had some.
It was actually at a theater, so they didn't. Okay. They had proper toilets.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, that's why she's still here. She didn't get.
At the shows I go to, there are porta potties. Yeah. So I actually played with the idea of doing like, do I make this a haunted band? Ooh, right? Yeah. Do I do a haunted band? And that certainly could have happened. But the reason I went with Carnival is I wanted it to be a distinctly fall time, autumn, Halloween read. And that brought me straight to carnivals, county fairs, pumpkin patch rides, all of which are referenced in the story, because I kind of wanted to hit all of those. And also it ties in nicely because carnivals and anything with those types of rides, especially like transient carnivals, like that pop up in a parking lot or whatever at the Kmart, there's an element of mystery and fear and danger when you decide to exchange your money for a ticket to one of those places. And when you think about them to the extent, you grew up and went as a kid to any of those places, nighttime at a twinkling, noisy, funnel cake smelling carnival, just, I don't know, for me, it's just hardwired in my head. And I just love that idea, probably more than I love the actually going, right? But I just love the sort of nostalgia of that. And I think, I don't think I'm alone in that. So that kind of put Let's Do a Dark Carnival over the edge.
So you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but for our listeners who are unfamiliar with the book, can you give an elevator pitch for it?
Yeah, sure. Well, I have two. The short elevator pitch, literally like doors closing, like the doors on the other side, the doors are closing, and you say, it's a latrine technician versus a dark carnival, right? And that's the quick, like doors are shutting in your face. The sort of the one that gives you a little bit more of an understanding is this story is about Sunday McQuarter. He's a 50-plus-year-old fellow who lives with his mom in his trailer. She is suffering from dementia, and he takes care of her. He needs a job with flexible hours and a company vehicle, so he gets a job at the local sanitation company where he maintains porta potties. And everything's going fine until, autumn comes along, county fair season starts, and people start going missing and bodies parts start being found in the porta potties that he is charged with cleaning, and it all goes downhill from there. So that's sort of the longer pitch.
That's definitely not something you want to find in your porta potty.
No, you don't want to find what he finds.
No. So I have all of the experience of having served on a jury, but I don't think the way chain of command is described to Sunday is how it really works.
Oh, the chain of custody?
Chain of custody, yeah, for evidence, because obviously, the porta potties are part of the investigation as he's finding body parts. You're an actual real lawyer, and you probably know more than I do about this. Did your career inform any of the law enforcement interactions in this book?
Only obliquely. I mean, what more informed kind of what goes on between the cop and Sunday is sort of an understanding how small towns work. more so than, oh, here's the letter of the law that these guys would follow. Can a cop deputize someone to hold on to evidence? Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. There are definitely ways to store evidence outside the evidence locker at a police station.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be done like this? Who knows? Maybe in Glen Rose it would, where Sunday lives, right? And I was just sort of thinking, this cop clearly is not trying to, solve the world's problems. He just wants it off his desk. So it was more about sort of how would a small town cop maybe handle this. That was really it. I going to deputize him to keep that porta potty as far away from the police department as possible.
Yeah. Speaking of small towns, this is the first of your works that we've read that takes place in Texas, which is your home state. Mm-hmm. Did your writing process change at all since this is a little closer to home than perhaps The Phlebotomist, which is a dystopian future?
Right. Well, I guess perhaps a little bit. There was a mood I wanted to capture, and having been to many of these small towns that I kind of feature in the book, there's a feeling and there's a way the people are in a lot of these places that I sort of wanted to capture. And I wanted to capture some of the interactions that I've had where you are often, and a lot of this was in my job, where in my job representing people who got sick as a result of their exposure to toxins in the workplace. These are blue collar people that have worked their whole lives and are now sick. And I have been in many, many small, tiny houses. I've been in many, many mobile home parks. I have sat there with these people and always walked away basically going, wow, Chris, you're a piece of shit because you think you have problems, right? And these people, I'm sitting in their living rooms and they can be more hospitable, more kind, and they have nothing close to the privilege I have. So a lot of this was sort of just a nod to those types of people. And they are embodied in one Poppy, Miss Poppy, pretty much. And a few of the other neighbors that you kind of meet. But I was just trying to capture that feeling of a true neighborly, like these people will help you if you need help, despite what's going on in their lives. And I have picked up, I'm not a native Texan, but in the 20 plus years I've been here, I definitely have picked up the parlance. So I just took the parlance, which is subtle, and I just turned it up to 12, so we have I hammed it up a little bit. Yeah.
There are some varmints.
For sure.
They show up.
Yep.
So our hero Sunday has to go to deal with a kind of like you call it a Twilight Fair, I believe, in the novel, which is a very unpleasant carnival, basically. And one of the attractions mentioned on page 69 is the Scribe of Hades. And I couldn't help but notice that that's your social media handle, at least on Blue Sky. Do you have a headcanon for how you got eaten by a porta potty?
No, that was truly. I'm sitting here. I'm like giving you a golf clap. That was just a little, I guess, Easter egg, right? Scribe of Hades is the title of a poster that I drew for a band in Sweden like 10 years ago. And because I keep the copyright for all of my art, I have used that little image. It's like a skull with like twirly hair and a feather quill pen. I was like, I like that as my sort of like trademark logo. And so when I went on to Blue Sky, I was like, I'm going to be Scribe of Hades on here. And so as I was just sitting there like bullshitting names and trying to come up with names for rides, I was like, Scribe of Hades sounds appropriate for this Twilight Fair, so I'm just going to throw that in there. So I well done. I'm so glad you picked up on that. That was really cool. I'm not there yet. We'll see. We'll see where I end up.
Did you have a lot of fun coming up with all of these like horrifying carnival rides?
Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. It was a ton of fun. And I kept going, are these weird and awful enough? And in my revisions, I would make them worse and worse and worse. Because I was like, okay, this is like, that's kind of bad. But what if I made it all out of cheese grater? You know, that's pretty good, I think. So yeah, it was a ton of fun. And coming up with the names, because I wanted the names to be evocative to where you don't even have to have the ride described to you. But, you know, I think there's one in there called like the Inflammable Child or something like that. And like, you don't even have to know what that is. It sounds awful, right? How do we know it's inflammable? Right?
Especially given the background we hear about the original carnival director.
Yeah,
certainly not the
what is he called? The boss or the
ringleader?
Yeah.
Ringmaster?
Yeah. The CEO of the fair? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they had those, but yeah.
Yeah. But given his history with freak shows, etc., brings some questions to mind.
Yeah, none of it is good. None of the answers are good.
It's not a carnival that I particularly have any interest in attending.
No, of course not. Good. That's good. Those are good instincts, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, it was really tempting, but
I don't know. Those funnel cakes sounded good, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, before we get into our spoilery conversation, I have one final question, which is, who should read this book? Maybe not if you have a weak constitution.
Yes, there is a little bit of goop, but if you enjoy horror and want something very appropriate for the spooky season, I think this is great. And even though we haven't touched much on this aspect yet, but there is a very like human element to it and very like personal thread of horror.
The relationships between the characters are very moving.
Yeah. That has nothing to do with the goop. There's horror in this book that has nothing to do with the goop. That's a very real world kind of thing.
A friend of mine read it. Her name is Ricky Goodwin, and she's an author too. And she like left a review. I hadn't asked her to blurb or anything. She left a review, and I was like, can I like put this on like a little graphic and shout it out? And she was like, yeah. And all it was she said, I didn't expect a story about a haunted toilet to make me cry. And I was like, that's it. That's Shitshow.
Yeah.
You know, I want people to know it's not just poop jokes.
No.
You know, there's only a handful of those, but it's really about this relationship between, you know, a adult son and his elderly mother.
Yeah, and we will talk more about that in the spoiler section.
Let's get over
Yes.
Let's go.
This episode of Fiction Fans is brought to you by Fiction Fans.
That's us. We really appreciate our patrons because otherwise we fund this podcast entirely ourselves.
Patrons can find weekly bonus content, monthly exclusive episodes, and they have free access to our biannual zine Solsticia.
You can find all of that and more at patreon.com/fictionfanspod. Thank you for all of your support.
The remainder of this episode contains spoilers.
Whoa. Are we in the Twilight Fair now?
Yeah.
Yes. But hopefully a little bit of a nicer one.
Did you just flush us into the spoiler section?
I like to think it was a slightly more pleasant experience.
This is the one after Regina has taken over.
Yeah.
Yes. This is the nice toilet. Yeah.
Yes. But for me, I have to say that I thought that the dementia storyline was really almost the true horror of this novel. it hit very close to home for me because my grandmother had dementia for a long time, and so I went through that progression that Sunday is kind of starting to go through, and it was real in a way that the portal potties, although fun, obviously are not.
The torture carnival rides were almost refreshing at that point because I was like, all right, some goopy horror, some skin flying off. Awesome. That's not stressful at all.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny to say this, but like I wanted to, and my editor really wanted to have this feel very grounded in the core emotional, heartwood of the story is Sunday and his mother. And so regardless of the setting that we've put them in, we always wanted to feel that. And, you feel that hopefully when they are together in the trailer and, she's got her Post-it notes up and trying to remind her who she is and who he is. And then even, once they go to the Twilight Fair and she has this sort of, the Twilight Fair offers her this sort of enlightenment where she can actually understand what's happening to her and remember things, and it becomes addictive for her. And it's Sunday battling with his own mother because he doesn't want her to be there, obviously, but she sort of does. And we just wanted all of that to be fairly agonizing, really, really pull at the emotional core of the story.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking to feel what Sunday is going through and to feel what she's going through too. Mm-hmm. And I think that really comes through on the page.
Well, thank you.
It got to a point, there was a half second where I wondered how much of the supernatural element was in Sunday's mind. That didn't last very long, mm-hmm. but like there was a very quick escalation, it felt, from, I think when he melts the stuffed rabbit, mm-hmm. from that point on, it goes like from 0 to 60 very fast. And I was like, whoa. But it became very obvious in the book that it wasn't in his mind. That wasn't like, is this all a dream? But just having those two very different plot lines, like with the sentimental horror, that's what I'm going to call it. And then just with the very external horror, it was an interesting like play back and forth.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, you quickly realize it puts you in the state of mind that he's in, which is if you're in that situation, it doesn't really matter how awful or terrible or daunting the external horror is. The personal horror is much more of a motivator. So it didn't matter that he had to go, scuba diving into the underworld through a shitter, right? That was just like, okay, what do I have to do next to solve this much bigger problem? So it's interesting because it makes all that stuff feel, like you said, almost you're down in the carnival rides and it's all awful, almost as like, I can relax a little bit, mm-hmm. Sure, there's people being shredded to pieces in this ride over here, but that's actually kind of a little bit of a relief, right? The actual like tension in the story, there's more tension in the story when he's like, how do I figure this out? And he's like going to Walmart trying to buy what he calls tracers to put down these porta potties and find his mother. There's much more, that's more stressful to him than, having to confront this Twilight Fair.
Mm-hmm. And it's also like, obviously she doesn't just wander away. She goes into this alternate dimension, but like wandering is a thing that people with dementia do. And mm-hmm. so that, it felt very real world scary.
Yeah. Even with the place, even though the place she goes is not real world, right?
Yeah.
So but that was just a nod to this is something we know happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are two people that Sunday tells about the torture carnival, the Twilight Fair, and they both believe him right away, which I quite loved, which I'm thinking of Ms. Poppy and Gabby, although I suppose the cop does believe him in his own way. He doesn't get this praise that I'm about to give.
Right.
We found that was a really fun inversion of the expectation that no one believes the main character when supernatural events start to occur.
Yeah, well, I think that like Miss Poppy is she's there for him, right? And they obviously already have a long history of trusting each other. So she's there for it. If he says this is what happens, she's there for it. I mean, look, she's she's already well lubed on Fireball. She's probably willing to just go with it, you know? But she's just one of those people that's like, yeah, if you say this is what we have to do and this is what happened, then I'm here for you. And then Gabby, I mean, that's a true friend. Like, think about it, you know, often what I do when I'm thinking about a character's reaction is I envision, like in that case, my own friend, like who's my best friend, coming to me and telling me this happened. I think I would believe them. I really do. As crazy as it is, based on the relationship I have with that person. If they dead ass told me, like, this happened, you have to help me, I'm like, okay, let's go, whatever it is. And then Gabby, of course, Gabby believes him, but then again, Gabby knows something of the history. Like, she already has her toe in the supernatural, right? So of course she's like, oh, this is actually something I know about, which again I thought was kind of a cool inversion, because I was like, I need someone else in the story. I wanted to, of course, have a teen. You know, as far as Sunday is concerned, anyone under 25 is a teen, right? And because, again, the story is of that vein. It starts with some teens. I wanted to kind of like, I think sometimes in a story like this, they are sort of the lifeblood of the story. And I have this older main character. And so I wanted to give a nod to that. And I wanted her to be the wellspring of information. He didn't go to the library and there wasn't a research montage, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted a younger person to sort of be the brains. And he's just like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do. But I wanted her to kind of be the guide and also be a little bit like, she's kind of also in it for herself because she's got this issue she's dealing with. So I just thought that those motivations sort of crossing paths was super fun. She saw a way out of her problem while also being able to help him and maybe not telling the whole truth about everything that was going on. So that felt believable to me.
I really did expect, even though she was lying about she had to be the one to beat Cadigan, when it was revealed that she had lied about it, I was still expecting it to happen. I think probably because I've watched too much Supernatural, where they usually do have, like, you know, you do need that familial link. So that was another fun inversion where it's the item that she brings, this little pocket watch, rather than her that Cadigan is looking for.
Yeah, it was just a slight like pivoting of our usual expectations, right? Mm-hmm. Usually it's like, oh, the person with the curse, they have to break the curse because that makes a very intuitive sense to us. And I was like, no, I can just pivot off that a little bit and have it be this possession coming in back into the Twilight Fair, which allows him to get out. But she's the one that delivers it. And so she, you know, she has found a way to get in. We've kind of tricked the reader a little bit into thinking they know what they're getting. And it's a nice little pivot that doesn't mess things up. And I think adds fun to it by the reader going, oh, like I didn't get what I expected and it still worked. I like doing stuff like that. Yeah.
It also tells us a lot about Gabby. She's, you know, the younger person who is going to misrepresent the situation in order to get what she wants, which is to go along on this adventure. That was very telling when she comes clean about that. I was like, okay.
Yeah, right. And of course she comes clean fairly quick when shit all starts to hit the fan down below. And she's like, I might have fucked up.
I mean, props to her for realizing that she got in over her head.
Yeah. Again, I thought, and maybe a lot of this is my kind of pushback. You guys bring up like the superhero films. The pushback against this perfect protagonist or this perfect character that they're going to do everything right and make all the right things and they're the chosen one in all of this. I kind of want to be like, no, let's make this this is called Shitshow. It needs to be more unpredictable. It needs to be more of a shit show. So I didn't want it to be super formulaic. I probably went through that debate as I was writing Gabby about whether I was going to make it sort of a she's the one that has to do it. And I was like, no, we're going to do something like that, but not exactly that.
Mm-hmm. No, I like it because it feels very ordinary. I mean that in a complimentary way. Like
I take it that way.
Yeah. Like it just, these are ordinary people just doing stuff, not always the right stuff, rather than any kind of destiny or bigger cosmic plan.
Yeah, exactly. There's a big bad that they have to deal with, and handling it might be a little more nuts and bolts than, reading a poem out of an ancient tome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be as simple as shoving Laffy Taffy up its ass.
Yeah.
You mentioned the teenagers at the beginning,
Mhm.
and I loved the classic opening sequence of the two teens fooling around, getting got by the monster. Like that just felt very. You mentioned the nostalgia of carnivals, and I felt like that fit in very well.
Oh, thanks so much. That I did not know what the rest of the book was going to be when I wrote that opening. I generally, I don't really outline, but I will sit there and like let something soak for a long time in my head. And then eventually my brain goes, you got to start writing right now. So I sat down and I wrote that prologue in one quick sitting. And I was like, okay, that's the right opener. And then I was like, again, to sort of pivot, I was paying my respects to the teens of old, right? But then I was like, what story have we not seen? Well, the natural protagonist here is not those two teens. That's what you would think, who gets sucked down there, and then we see them wherever they are, and they have to battle their way out. No, it's the guy maintaining the porta potties. Like, let's have him be, the center of this story. And how would that look? And that allowed it to have that little bit more mature nature with that, to confront what he's dealing with. And then we solve the teens' problems later on. But that's, it allowed a different type of story, a totally different type of story than we're trapped here. How do we get out? This was sort of the reverse. It was like, how do we get in and then get out?
You do still want to get out.
Yeah, you do.
But
you mentioned that you don't outline. While you were writing this book, were there any scenes or elements that surprised you?
The answer to that is yes. I remember really kind of, it was a breakthrough when I was like, oh, I think I'm going to have them triangulate like a center shitter that happens to be in Dublin, Texas, and based on how these people are being abducted from all these other fairs and counties and all that. And I think the thing that really gave it a lot of flesh was, as I was going to Dublin, I was on Google Maps and I was doing Street View, because I've been all over like Central and West Texas, which is where this is. I think I've driven through Dublin 2 times, but it was a while ago and I didn't recall exactly what was there. And I wanted to give the reader a feel for what this town feels like as you're driving in. So I was on Google Street View and I was going down the street and I was looking to the side and I saw that there was a vape shop, which I put in the story. I changed the name, but I put the vape. And then I had the idea, I think I saw something like, a historical society or something like that. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I have to do that. I have to do like one of those small town museums that is probably half true and half myth about the town, right? You can never like totally trust those places. And I was like, oh, that sounds really appropriate for this story. So I got a huge kick out of fleshing that whole part of it out. And then of course that gave me Gabby too. So that was really cool, but that was a total accident. That was just as I was looking at the Street View and I saw one of those places and I was like, oh, that is perfect for the story. So happy accident.
Unrelated to, related to the book, but unrelated to what you have just been saying. Every time you use the word fleshing out, I just think of the Skinner.
Yeah, man, the Skinner, it's rough. It's rough. I apologize on behalf of myself and the publisher for that, but that's what you're always going to think from now on. I can't look. I've always had an aversion to cheese graters. I will use them. I don't like it. I don't claim to like it because I always think about knuckling myself through there. So this was just me confronting my own fears, really. Yeah.
Has it worked?
No, I don't think so.
But back to, I guess this was still book related, but a little more on topic. Would you say that the book has a happy ending?
I would. Yeah. Because because to end Regina's story any other way that doesn't end like dementia ends, a magical cure, something like that, deeply unsatisfying. That would be deeply unsatisfying. So, in order for her to continue on in the way she does, there has to be a sacrifice, right? It was never going, I didn't know how it was going to end, but it was never going to end with, oh, now she's cured. That to me rings hollow. And I think that does a disservice to the fact that I've just had a character with dementia in the book for 200 pages. And now on the last one, we're going to cure her. That would rub me the wrong way as a reader, I think. So I ended it how it had to end. Like she has to kind of die, right? And not be on this earth anymore, but she can continue on in the place that kind of paused her dementia. So there's a big sacrifice, there's a cost to it, which is what makes it work. Because if there were no cost and it was just a purely happy ending, we can watch a Hallmark movie anytime.
Yeah.
You know, that is not what I'm setting out to do. So you have the huge cost to both her and to Sunday, but then she kind of gets to obtain this alternative role in that world now that Cadigan is gone. And it, I think, leaves open just a little bit of hope in some way, like a vague hope that maybe, maybe there is something better after. I don't particularly believe in the afterlife, but maybe there's something else. And I think just in the act of recognizing the suffering of people with dementia, it gives them some genuine respect. And maybe for people who are dealing with loved ones who have dementia, they could see that recognition, and it can just make them breathe a little easier. Just like, hey, someone else is thinking about this and empathizing with this situation, which never ends well. So that's really all that was. That was a nod, the little prologue with the brand new character you've never seen, who's suffering from it and confronting in a page and a half, really, what she's dealing with and the decisions that she's thinking about making, and then having Regina show up out of her toilet. I mean, who knew that could be such a touching scene, right? But that just felt like the right way to end it.
I'd say there's more than a little hope in that ending. I mean, we get the implication that she is in charge of the carnival now, right? She's the queen of the carnival.
She is. She is.
And I imagine there's less cheese graters in her version.
That's exactly right. I was trying, I made her a gardener throughout the whole book. She loves her flowers and everything. And so then I just kind of paid a nod to that at the end with, all the vines and beautiful flowers growing out of the toilet in the nursing home. Yeah. So it looks way different now that she's in charge. And I just love that she's in charge. Like she, even throughout the whole thing, even as she's suffering, like she's single-minded. Even if she's making a mistake or if she's making the right decision, I like that you're like, whatever she's doing down there, she's doing it. No one is stopping her from doing it. And it's probably good.
Well, is there anything specific you would like readers to take away from this book, or have we covered it with that happy ending?
I think we've covered it. It's more about what I want readers to have going into this book, because look, I've said in other interviews and stuff that like people make certain assumptions when they pick up a book with a porta potty on the front. It's called Shitshow. A lot of them are going to assume, oh, I'm getting just pure cotton candy. I'm getting some hollow fun, whatever. And I hope I delivered on some of that hollow fun. Everybody needs a cheap laugh, and there's plenty of those in here. But if I read a book, a humorous book for laughs, at some point there's got to be something more. So what I want people to appreciate going in is you're going to get much more from this book than just a running joke, right? And it may surprise you and it may hit you harder than you think it's going to hit you, but that's kind of what I had hoped. So it's really expectations going in. I don't want people to just pass up this book because they think it's just going to be running poop jokes. There's actually, are there even any poop jokes? I don't think there's a poop joke in it, to be totally honest.
No, I don't think there is.
Not a
And
one. So maybe I messed up. I don't know.
Missed opportunity there. But yeah, I would definitely not, like, there are some books that I consider popcorn books, which is like what you were saying, kind of surface level, enjoyable, but not that deep. And this is definitely not one of those. Like, it does have that emotional through line that is really hard and very real, that keeps it grounded, even when there is the cheese graters.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm glad it hit you that way.
Yeah.
Well, you hinted at this a little bit, but what can you tell us about your upcoming projects?
Well, the very next thing is it's a horror fantasy. And this is a book I wrote 3 times before I really got it right. And it is called Daytide. So like Day Tide. It is coming out from Rapture Publishing in February of 2026. This is different than everything else I've ever published because it's just a limited deluxe edition book. So there's 350 copies and that's it. It's like hardcover dust jacket. It's a foil stamped fabric bound book. I did all the illustrations. So I did the cover, I did the design of the foil stamp. I have done maps, end papers, lots of illustrations throughout. So it's certainly the most that I can think I will ever do for one book, because I do illustrate for other people and I do, for different places, whether it's covers or interiors, but never to this extent. And the only reason this one is so much is because it's my own book. So it's just like chock full of stuff. And that one is, I wouldn't even try to describe what that is. It's one of those books that you just have to kind of read it. But the elevator pitch, the door slamming in my face elevator pitch, isn't even a pitch. It's more of just a description. It's like, we're calling it Black Metal Wizard of Oz. So that is the pitch for Daytide. That comes out in February, and you can get that at rapturepublishing.com. And then
I know you said that it's going to be a very limited edition for print. Do you have any plans of releasing an ebook of it?
So not immediately, because the whole point of the limited editions is they're like, we want to be the only thing because we want to be able to sell this. Now, there will eventually be a audiobook that will be released after that. And I'll put that on all my social media and everything. So there will be an audiobook. And then basically the way these limited editions work is I get my rights back after a year, or they sell out, whichever is sooner. So they've got what they want once they sell all the books. And then I can take that to any other publisher and do a trade edition, which would just be, probably a soft cover, $20 book, as opposed to, a $65 deluxe like edition type book. And so we'll see what happens. A lot of that will be determined by the response to Daytide as it's coming out from Rapture. So there will be other ways to get it, probably, but not in this form. In this form, this is it. And then next September is my 4th book from Angry Robot, and that is called Worry Box. And that is about a family that moves into a new house. They have a foster daughter who suffers from extremely violent, intrusive thoughts. And my goal in writing that story was to see if I could write a horror novel where every character is good and see if things can still go really, really bad. So that is Worry Box. The answer is yes, I did. And so that's Worry.
I am worried already.
And then I have a 27 book coming out from Angry Robot, which they just greenlit, and I really can't say anything about that one yet. We'll release some stuff when we know a little bit more. The main thing I can't say anything about it is I barely know the premise myself, and I actually have to write it and figure out what this thing is. So I'm going to sit down with my pants on fire and see where it goes. But I do really like the premise. I'll just say it's a demon book. That's all I'll say. Yeah.
Well, I am excited for all of these. Excited, but also scared.
Yeah, like usual. That's great. That's right where we want you. Yes.
But I do love your books, so I will continue reading them, even though they're horror. And horror is not my genre.
I appreciate it very much.
But where can you be found on the internet so that our listeners can follow you and find out more information when more information is released?
Sure. I'm on Blue Sky at Scribe of Hades. I am at chrispanatier.com. My Instagram is Chris Panatier. And I think I'm on TikTok as Chris Panatier until I have to delete TikTok. So, like, who knows? I'm sort of rooting for the dead internet theory, so we could just go back to like horse-drawn carriages and writing each other wax-sealed letters. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. You know, maybe the next time we chat, it'll be over like cups and string.
I mean, that does make podcast distribution a little difficult.
It does.
Mailing CDs to everyone.
Podcast by CD.
Yeah.
We like might be headed that direction in terms of like people being able to keep their physical media, right? Like, if you want to watch something, you should be able to just stream it. I'll find it, and then they just pull it down. So it's like, now I have to go pull out my DVDs of Gilmore Girls if I want to watch that, you know?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm watching Gilmore Girls. I would never. But I do like a good Gilmore Girls. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a wonderful book, and we love talking to you about your writing always. And it sounds like we've got a lot more to look forward to, so I'm excited.
Hope so. I love chatting with you guys always. You guys are the best. We have so much fun.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
You bet.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
Come disagree with us. We're on Blue Sky and Instagram at FictionFansPod. You can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com or leave a comment on YouTube.
If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and follow us wherever your podcasts live.
We also have a Patreon where you can support us and find exclusive episodes and a lot of other nonsense.
Thanks again for listening, and may your villains always be defeated. Bye.